Trying to make sure our audio is good here. Sounds like we are. So we'll get going, kind of let people join up. It's 8:32 Tuesday night, kind of the same scenario that we had last night, although I think tonight a slightly better chance for more people to get in on some shower and thunderstorm activity in the coastal bend and specifically the KIII viewing area. And we're going to be, spending some time. We'll probably go well into the 9 o'clock hour on this live feed, wherever you're watching it from, YouTube, Facebook, our 3 News Plus app, any of our streaming platforms. We'll be on this, I want to say, I hope till at least 9:30, and then I'll have to go back over to my office and kind of organize for the 10 o'clock broadcast, which will be also on all of those things live. So see if we can pull this stuff up here. And to manipulate the radar imagery, I got control of it now. And a few minutes ago, the Weather Service put out this severe thunderstorm watch box. It's the this big yellow polygon. That includes a lot of the brush country, parts of Jim Wells County, parts of Brooks County, all of Jim Hogg County, and most of Duval County. This line of storms is moving east-southeast about 30 miles per hour at last check. And I like to do it the old-fashioned way with respect to figuring out how fast these are moving. So I'm going to scrub this back an hour, put a little mark on there, and just see how far they move that leading edge over the course. It's still about 30 miles per hour movement to the east-southeast. So these 2 storms that we're looking at north of Laredo, right on the Rio Grande and Texas-Mexico border, if you will, these 2 storms are severe warned for 1-inch hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds in that activity. So, the hail threat, I'll say out west of 281, more so into the brush country, that is where the hail threat is going to be the biggest. I don't see a huge hail threat as these start approaching the coastline, but definitely a wind threat within this activity. So let's just put a storm track on it, given the 30 mile per hour movement. And we'll see where these end up, at about the next hour and a half time frame. So Laredo, 9:45 or so. They wouldn't be into the KIII viewing area, it looks like, until at least the 10 o'clock hour. I don't see them getting in at this movement till, at least the 10 o'clock hour in places like Duval County, may even be a little bit later than that. But 30 mile per hour movement to the east-southeast, and they're moving into this environment that's going to be able to support the strong to severe level thunderstorms. These are the threats that we're seeing, tonight through tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. or so. Rain under the heavier stuff could easily pick up a 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches of rain, maybe a little bit more, but the flooding threat is low. We're not looking at a huge flooding threat, although there will be heavy rain under these thunderstorms. Lots of lightning. The wind threat and the hail threat, we've got at moderate or medium, 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, 1 to 2 inch hail, and the tornadic risk is looking pretty low with these storms. It's not 0, but that's of the 3 we're talking about in terms of severe weather. The tornadic risk is looking to be fairly low. This looks more like a straight line wind event. You're starting to see how these are getting a little bit more linear looking, wanting to take on that bowing effect, B-O-W-I-N-G, the reverse C. When you see, when you see this structure and it starts bowing out like that, the more you get bowed, the faster the winds behind these storms are moving in. And that's really what's pushing out the reflectivity and bulging out the storms in that reverse C shape. So it's something we kind of look for, as we're tracking these storms. And we keep referencing, strong to severe. Severe level thunderstorms, they have a specific set of criteria. I'll bring this graphic up so we can show you exactly what we're talking about. And there are 3 ingredients that would make a storm severe. Any combination or any one of them make a storm severe warned. And that's for 1-inch hail or greater, 58 mile per hour winds or greater, or a tornado. And any of those 3 render a thunderstorm severe. So it's a specific set of criteria that we're looking for. Rain, thunder, lightning, flooding, none of that is included in the severe warning criteria. So you could have a big flooding storm, but it's not severe, and you maybe get flash flood warnings, but not severe warnings. So that's the general, those are the guidelines. Severe weather is 1-inch hail, 58 mile per hour wind, or a tornado, and that's what makes things severe, the way we're seeing out to the west of the KIII viewing area. We've got these polygons, and they're for 60 mile per hour wind and 1-inch hail. We'll see what our radar hail product is showing for these cells. We can even put the warning polygons on there. So you see where the warnings are. You're not going to get a warning on the one in Mexico because it's the U.S. Weather Service, so they're not going to warn for what looks like the biggest of the storms. That's where the largest hail core is right now. So you look at it, that one's 1 to 2 inch hail out there. Right on the Rio Grande in Webb County, northwest of Laredo, you got another storm dropping 1-inch hail. And then up south of Crystal City, looking at around 1-inch hail in that storm too. So there are some pockets of damaging hail in there. We're pretty far from the radar site to start looking at the velocity data at this point. I don't think we're seeing. We're at the edge of what this radar can see. I'm going to see if I can adjust this and make it better for our viewing pleasure. See if I can switch over to the Del Rio radar. That's what I just did. So we got the Del Rio radar up. It's there on Highway 90 between Uvalde and Del Rio. I just want to see what the velocity product is showing on this to see what the winds are looking like. Right in there. So we're seeing 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, the radar sampling. It's a pretty rural area, but that's what we're looking at. 1 to 2 inch hail. The storms are doing that right now. 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. The storms, they're producing all of those characteristics. Another kind of tell I like to look for, bear with me real quick, having to reload the computer. I start looking at cloud tops. How are they ebbing and flowing? The higher the tops of the clouds, generally the stronger the updraft is, pushing those clouds in the vertical motion, and the stronger a thunderstorm is. So I'm going to load our cloud tops depiction, and it's all from the radar. And you'll see some pretty high altitudes here showing up. That storm in Mexico that's producing the 1 to 2 inch hail looking at cloud tops up 55 to 60,000 feet. Let's see if I can sample this for y'all. Yeah, 56,000 feet there, 59,000 feet. So we're 50,000 feet up where, you know, the atmosphere is frozen, and that's where the wind is blowing the rain up, and the rain's going up into the freezing part of the atmosphere and freezing. It's doing this process over and over. The winds push it up, the hail falls back down, the winds push it back up, and the more times it does that, the larger the hailstone gets. So we'll go back to the radar. I know we're going to get questions about when is it going to hit whatever city you're asking about, X city. And I'll just, you know, when we're looking at thunderstorm activity like this, a line of storms, I try not to go out more than 1 or 2 hours time, because it's hard to predict. Are they going to keep the same speed? Are they going to keep the same motion? Are they going to stay together? Are they going to get stronger? They're going to morph, right? These storms are going to morph as they continue to move in the direction that they're heading. So I wouldn't want to put a storm track out from Laredo to Corpus Christi saying this is what to expect over this amount of time. Everyone's going to get the same thing. These ebb and flow so much that putting a track out like that would be disingenuous if and likely when the storms shift around. Either way, weaker or stronger. So I don't like to do that. So what I do, you know, we'll go out 2 hours. Given that 30 mile per hour movement, we'll bring these out 2 hours, moving kind of east to southeast. Drop these at 2 hours. So still not quite into, you know, the freer area. I'll extend it out a little more just to kind of catch freer in there. Put it into Duval County, parts of Jim Hogg County. Again, this is based on a 30 mile per hour movement, and those are the cities. Freer by 11, Hebronville by 11:20, based on that 30 mile per hour movement to the east-southeast. 1 to 2 inch hail, 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts is what we're looking at. The general timeline for the coastal bend, now that we can see when they're going to be entering the KIII viewing area, our farthest west counties are Duval and Jim Hogg counties. So I would say between about 11 p.m. through 4 a.m., those 5 hours, the general window for these storms to move through the coastal bend. We're also keeping an eye on some additional activity up near San Antonio that's also probably going to start to move a little more to the south. In general, right now, everything is moving east to southeast. So this is kind of the general direction everything's moving right now. The forecast modeling on this, so we'll just talk about what we've been seeing with today's data, has turned this activity that's moving in close to Laredo, it's wanting to move this kind of like so toward the southwestern parts of the KIII viewing area. And, you know, we'll see if that happens. Given what we've got on the radar, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if this just continued to keep a steady line to the east to southeast, kind of like it's doing right now, kind of on this track. That's the general movement. I'll show you our in-house modeling so you can see what I'm talking about. I think our in-house stuff is doing a decent job of bringing this in around the time, this is 11 o'clock into Freer. That's about when we're expecting the showers and storms to get into Freer based on this 30 mile per hour movement and where they are right now. So this model is doing something called, we call it initializing well. It's getting where the storms are and where they're forecast to be pretty close to what looks like is going to be happening. So that gives it a little bit more credibility, a little more credence. And you'll see how this model, this is 1 o'clock, 1:30, it pulls a lot of that activity down toward the southwestern part of the viewing area. Some of this could be strong. In the meantime, it doesn't do a whole lot to the more northern end of that line of storms. So it's just something that we have to watch and see. If you're wondering what time is it going to get to my location, you will know with an hour heads up time. You will know with an hour, maybe more, of lead time, when the storms are coming your direction. It's just impossible to say, all right, this is what they're doing right now at 8:48. That's what they're doing now, and at 2 a.m. they're going to be doing the same thing, moving at the same speed. It doesn't work that way. We're not going to be able to give you, that precise of an outlook. What we can do this, is just, we can see, how far away they are from, what time would they at 30 miles an hour? That would put them in Corpus Christi around 1:30 in the morning, right? Around 1:30 in the morning. Kingsville around 12:45, just after midnight in Alice. 11:30 in Benavides, 11 in Freer. So that's the general timeline, but that also, you're stuck to 30 miles an hour. If they speed up, it could be quicker. If they slow down, it could be slower. So generally 1:30, 1 o'clock hour for Corpus Christi, based on the current movement. There's also this activity to the west and north of San Antonio to watch for. So we'll be doing that as well. I'll try to answer some questions here. If there are any, I don't know if we got to all of them. Are we going to get stormed tonight? Just depends on where you are, Daniel. Mr. Alvarez. We'll put the storm track back on for the next hour and a half to 2 hours. Again, based on that 30 mile per hour movement. Should we bring in porch benches? Question from Christina Garcia. If you're in the line of the storms, and they're producing 60 to 70, I would, gather in the patio furniture, secure it. Nick Gilby, do you think the NWS will expand the severe watch? It's tough to say. They're forecasters just like us. I don't think they will expand the watch to include more coastal counties, just given how close we are. I think the watch that was put out was given for these storms at hand, and they're kind of latently saying, okay, not looking as likely for severe weather toward Corpus Christi. And that kind of jives with, the modeling we were just showing, with these storms taking more of that southward movement. That's kind of what the watch box alludes to when you see that. If they were thinking these were going to plow right through, you'd have more of a hamburger shaped watch box, not this hot dog shape to it. It's a good question. Okay, so another one, will Cotulla see this? Yes, you're going to get this activity in Cotulla, the northern end of it, probably within the hour in Cotulla. How much will this impact the watershed? It helps, but it's not going to bring us into anything, we're not going to see an appreciable rise in any of the levels because of this activity. You'd need a lot more rain, a lot more frequent, and more so to the north of where this is tracking. Just reading through the questions, trying to, and I won't be able to answer specific questions about specific cities that are, we're 3 or 4 hours out from maybe coming in. This line's moving 30 miles an hour, right? This is the general timeline. If it holds together the way it is right now, that's how it's looking. Those are the general. Those are the general times. That's based on 30 mile per hour movement and based on the fact that these hold together. That's assuming that they hold together all the way to the coast. I've seen them fall apart. I've seen them plow right through. I've seen them turn right. I've seen them go poof. They're very difficult to predict as they start interacting with the marine environment here. The forecast modeling, we'll just show how the modeling, again, handles this. And overnight, this is a little after midnight, this kind of takes most of the activity to Duval, Jim Hogg, Brooks counties, and then continues through Kennedy County through about 3 or 4 in the morning. That's how our in-house modeling handles this situation. So a lot of the higher resolution models are handling it, even coming in tonight, real time. I was looking at one, and it wants to keep a lot of the strong stuff kind of to the southwest of Corpus Christi. Eric Deacon asking about an outflow boundary. I'm not seeing anything like that yet coming out of these storms. There was one up in San Antonio, and that kind of washed out over our viewing area. But I don't think that these are producing outflow at this point. And outflow, if you're watching us, is rain, cooled air rushing out away from a storm. And sometimes when that does start to happen, you'll see something like a little green line out in front of the storms like this, with the air rushing out in front of the storms. And that air is cool, so you're pushing out cooler air out in front of the storms, and sometimes that can lower the severity, the strength of the storms when you start seeing outflow rushing out in front of a line of thunderstorms. Got a tropical question. Ricky Sponsler asking about the warm Gulf. Great question. I'd recommend watching our hurricane special June 1st. All of those questions are going to be answered with all of our thoughts. It's going to be at 6:30 on Saturday in the evening. Oh, we've got Nora saying Corpus Christi is like the armpit. Nothing ever hits Corpus Christi. It's always either above or below. Well, was looking up stats over the last 6 years, and we've had above average rainfall on average over the last 6 years. Yearly average is 31 3/4 of an inch. That's a 30-year average from 1991 to 2020. And over the last 6 years, not only has it been above average over those years, but 2021 was the third rainiest year on record. So that's out of 138 years of data. 2018 was in the top 20 years, 40 inches of rain that year. So I know it can seem like nothing ever happens, or a storm misses us, maybe 2 storms miss us, maybe 3 chances for rain miss the Corpus Christi area. The numbers show that it does rain here. It's just that not every single chance for rain does Corpus Christi, the small geographical area that the city is in, cashes in on every chance for rain. It's just not how it works. But anyway, back to the situation at hand. And these storms are looking linear, so they're fairly organized. They're producing hail, 60 mile per hour, 70 mile per hour wind. Let's go back and check on the hail. And it looks like the stuff that's in Webb County is kind of weakened a little bit. The stuff west of Laredo and Mexico, more robust. Nearly 2 inches diameter on those hailstones, which is definitely enough to do damage, but that's still in another country right now. And we'll try to hang out on this for maybe another 15, maybe 30 minutes. It's going to start moving in, looks like, based on the current speed, to Duval County, Jim Hogg County, these far western areas of the KIII viewing area. Right around 11. That's the timeline for these to arrive in KIII country. Western Duval and Jim Hogg counties. They're moving 30 miles per hour to the east to southeast. Main threats, 1-inch hail and or 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. Rudy is very impressed by these thunderstorms. Last night, Rudy brought us in, he brought in some treats for the news team. He's getting all shy over there now. He's getting shy. There he goes. All right. I would bring him over here, but he's walking away now. Okay. Erica Herrera, I just cut my grass today. Me too. I gave my lawn a little trim, gave the old house a haircut. That's what I call cutting the grass, because whenever you cut the grass, your house looks way better for whatever reason. Gave the house a haircut. Nora saying hopefully it can wash out some of the smoke, and that is one of the benefits of rain. We saw that happen yesterday. Complex of showers and storms moved south, deep South Texas, south of Corpus Christi, but that cleansed the atmosphere a little bit. It raised the air quality from unhealthy to moderate. So that was a nice little bonus, even though we didn't cash in Corpus Christi on that complex of thunderstorms. This should hopefully do the same type of thing for tomorrow. Let's look and see. Again, this is not in our viewing area yet, but Laredo's about to get, into some of this activity. Next 30 minutes for Laredo, a little after 9:30. Again, that's based on a 30-mile-per-hour movement. How are we getting the movement? And I do this is, I think, the most surefire way of picking and getting the exact movement, the speed of these storms. So I'm marking the leading edge of this group of storms 1 hour ago and just simply seeing how far they move in 1 hour's time. And it looks like they're picking up a little speed, 35 miles per hour now. So that's why I never like going out so far, 4 or 5 hours, because the timing can shift so quickly when you do that. So let's say they're moving 35 miles an hour now. Let's see how that changes, the arrival time for Freer, for Hebronville at 35 miles per hour. And that puts them in at 1040. So we're talking about a 20-minute difference just because of a 5 mile per hour, shift in the speed. Earlier at 30 miles per hour, it was saying Corpus Christi around 1:30. At 35 miles per hour, if it held together, it would be in 40 minutes faster. So, that's why. That's why I don't like putting out the timeline for 3-4 hours out in time. 1 to 2 hours, okay. 3 to 4 hours, maybe not the most responsible. So if you're just joining us, wherever you're streaming this from, Facebook, YouTube, 3 News Plus, I'm Alan Holt. Get to talk about weather every day for a living. Love that. But we've got a severe thunderstorm watch that was issued about an hour ago. I don't know exactly what time that was issued. It was issued... No, it doesn't say. I believe it was about an hour ago. Yeah, because it was 8:12 when I put it on the web. So about 8:10 is when this came out. And all this is saying the watch, this big yellow polygon, we're looking at this area of land. It means that the environment is set up in a way to support strong to severe thunderstorms. And there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of lifting potential in the atmosphere, and the main threats with stronger storms are going to be 1-inch hail and 60 to 70 mile per hour wind. The hail threat, my opinion, is going to be west of I-35. That's where the big damaging hail threat will be. As these get into KIII country, there may be some smaller hail, 1 inch, maybe, toward Duval, Jim Hogg counties. As they get closer to the coast, the hail threat should decrease with respect to the size of the hailstones. So I don't think we'd be at severe level hail closer to the coast. But the wind threat is there throughout, 60 to 70 mile per hour winds. That is a threat for just about everybody, even outside of the watch box, although this watch area is the most likely piece of land to get one of those stronger wind gusts. check what's going on in San Antonio. Yeah, the complex of storms moving in. So San Antonio going to get some more thunderstorms tonight. Some of this activity, the guidance is wanting to pull it down to the south like so. You know, it's with the complex that we've got going on right now, maybe a little bit, you know, difficult to get that group of storms all the way to the south and into the coastal bend. I'm noticing a really cool feature showing up. This is cool. So I'm looking right here. There's this little vortex that's just to the north and west of Asherton. This is not in the KIII viewing area. And what that looks like it is to me is something called a bookend vortice. So the air is wrapping around the top side of this line of storms, and you're getting, you know, a movement kind of like so into that Asherton area. A bookend vortice. You can Google that if you want, but they typically form on the north or south ends of bow echoes, which I don't think this is quite yet. You wouldn't call this a bow echo. This just looks like a mesoscale convective complex or system. But I don't see the classic bowing, the reverse C on this structure just yet. You know, bow echo, you'd want to have much more of a curve. This looks fairly linear, more like a squall, but not totally a squall line. So mesoscale convective complex or system would be a good definition to call this stuff. But a little bookend vortice up there. Let's look at the velocity product and see what that's showing us. Not seeing a ton. Try to get a better look on the radar. Okay, so there is some pretty strong outbound winds. So we're looking at from the Del Rio radar. When you see red and you're looking at velocity data, it means the winds are blowing away, which actually makes sense because that vortex we were talking about would be blowing like this into the storm. So let's see how fast that wind is being sampled. Again, this is going to be a little bit higher up in the atmosphere. And it's right over the Asherton area. Okay, so right around that severe level, 60 mile per hour on that activity. And you'll see that it's warned. So 60 mile per hour winds, it's warned in the Asherton area. And I don't really see that bookend vortex there. Let's loop it and see how it looks. You'll maybe see it a little bit. Just kind of caught my eye. I'm not seeing it as well defined right now, though. So this is still well away from the KIII viewing area, probably not going to get in until 10:30 or later for the western parts of Duval and Jim Hogg counties, and then continuing to the east. Last check, 35 mile per hour movement. We got a new severe thunderstorm warning that's just been put out. This does include a lot of Webb County. This is into the Laredo area. And it's warned for strictly 60 mile per hour winds. So the hail threat not as high. 60 mile per hour winds. The Weather Service is clocking this at 40 miles per hour on the easterly easterly movement. And again, I like to just do it the old-fashioned way. I just like to double check and make sure that's how these are moving. So leading edge, and then we'll just see where they are. Oh, let me go back. Hit the wrong button. So at the leading edge. And the radar can sometimes tell you this is what it thinks on the movement. So yeah, it's picking up speed. Over the time we've been on this Facebook Live, last 30 minutes, YouTube, whatever, they were moving at 30. Now they're picking up speed, moving at 40 miles per hour. Let's get a new timeline on this then. And that severe warnings till 10:15 over in Webb County still does not include the KIII viewing area. But given the change in speed, going up to 40 now, let's just see how fast they're going to get to where they're going to go on that movement. So we'll track them for the next hour and a half. Based on a 40 mile per hour movement. And now we're talking 1028 in Freer, 1038 in Hebronville. So 30 minutes faster than, the 30 mile per hour movement we were looking at just 15 to 20 minutes ago. And this new warning is not for hail. This warning in Webb County is strictly for 60 mile per hour winds. Again, more activity to the north of this, up towards San Antonio. Those are closing in on western Bexar County. Those are not as strong as the line that's moving toward Laredo. So the stuff up in San Antonio, this stuff up here in the hill country does not look as strong as the more organized linear structure of the complex of storms that are just about to get to the I-35 corridor and into Laredo. Let's look and time these out. If they were to come all the way to Corpus Christi at a 40 mile per hour movement. So we've seen anything from 130, then with a 35 mile per hour movement, that put them in around 1245. With a 40 mile per hour movement, that would put them into Corpus Christi around 1230. Kingsville around midnight. Alice around 11:30. Freer 10:40. So that's given a 40 mile per hour movement. Getting a lot of questions about the watershed. These storms are passing over parts of the watershed. This is not enough activity to make an appreciable difference in the levels. We're at like 26.7% today. There's not going to be an appreciable rise because of this activity. We're talking maybe a half inch to an inch of rain, maybe an inch to 2 in some locations if you get multiple or one of the heavier parts of the system. But it's not enough. This is not enough of a driving, soaking rain to make a huge difference, even though it is passing over parts of the watershed, unfortunately. The main threats with these storms are going to be hail and straight line winds. And those are, I think, the two threats. Heavy rain threat is high, but the flooding threat is low because we're not expecting a ton of rainfall. If you happen to get a 60 to 70 mile per hour gust, that's enough to toss around patio furniture, trampolines. It could snap a tree limb. Maybe your car is parked under a tree. You can get a branch down, something like that. And then the hail threat, I'm thinking the biggest hail threat is west of I-35. As the storms get closer to the coast, not as big of a hail threat. So I don't think we're looking at damaging, destructive hail as the storms get closer to the coast. Did want to check in on the storm heights, the cloud tops. They were up, if we were watching earlier, they were up 59,000 feet, some of them. Still up 59,000 feet. So these have not weakened at all over the last 30 minutes. Not weakened at all. Hail, starting to see a little bit more expanding on that line. Just sample it. It's 1 inch hail in there. So wouldn't be surprised to see the severe warning labels adjusted a little bit to include the hail in subsequent updates if this holds. But the severe warning right now in Webb County, this one that expires at 10:15, that one is not for hail. It's for 60 mile per hour winds. And we can check the wind data also on all this stuff. And God, this is where Laredo's kind of no man's land for radar, because you have the Corpus Christi site here and the Del Rio site up here. Laredo is on the edge of both of those, so you're not going to get great data. I bet the wind sampling out here is going to be off the charts. It's going to be really high, 77, and it's because you're getting really far up into the atmosphere. That radar beam, as it goes out from the radar, is traveling up at a half degree angle. And as it travels out, I'm just going to see how far out that is and how high up it is. So we're looking from Corpus Christi. That's the radar site we're looking at. From Corpus Christi to Laredo, you're talking about 150 miles or so to where those storms are. I'll just show it to you. So from Corpus Christi to Laredo, 150 miles, right? And that beam is going up. It's going up at a slight angle. So that far out, the beam height is somewhere up around 13 to 14,000 feet. And that's where those winds are that we're seeing on the radar. So those aren't at the surface, but some of that does mix down, as the storm moves in, rain's pushing air down, you got your downdraft. Some of that strong wind is getting mixed down to the surface, but I would be surprised if it was up at 80 miles per hour the way the radar's kind of indicating there. Nonetheless, the way this looks, the linear structure to these storms, there's going to be some strong wind in there. Moving into Laredo right now. It's 9:21. I'm going to have to go over to the computers and kind of get my bearings ready for the 10 o'clock news. So I won't stay on this for terribly long, but we'll be here throughout the night. As we watch this stuff. I'll do some quick general stuff about, what we're seeing from a forecast perspective. And this is one of our weather models that we're looking at. This is our in-house model I'm going to pull up here. So it's not publicly available. And you'll see that it does a decent job. This was at 5 o'clock. That's about where the storms were at that point. We'll move it to where we are right now, 9 o'clock, 9:30 here. That's believable. The storms up in San Antonio aren't that strong, but the storms are moving into the Laredo area at 9:30. That's what's happening right now. And you'll see how these storms kind of morph. The San Antonio stuff gets weaker. We're already seeing that. And the stuff around Laredo continues on to the south and moves through Duval, Jim Hogg, Brooks, Kennedy counties through about 3 or 4 in the morning. And then we're done with the rain chances for Wednesday. Maybe a little bit more up near Houston, for tomorrow afternoon. But I don't think we see much in the coastal bend for Wednesday. This big region of high pressure, it's going to hang out in Mexico. It's really hot in Mexico. That's where it's focused. That's where the biggest impact from this high are. The long story short, what I wanted to get across here is that on Friday night, we're going to have another little chance for rain. Air flowing around the top side of this high. See how the wind contours are showing that? What I did here on this graphic is put in the upper level energy. So energy at about 18,000 feet up in the atmosphere, and a little short wave. See that there's a little kink in the flow there. A little short wave crosses south central Texas Friday night. That may be enough to translate to another chance for, showers and storms, kind of like we're seeing right now. So that's something to keep an eye on. It's not a slam dunk, but it's something that, I'm paying attention to as our next opportunity for a chance for some rain. We'll put up the 7-day and leave it there because I'm going to have to get over and update some graphics here. But aside from that Friday night little chance, I don't see a ton after tonight. The haze from agricultural burning probably going to take a hiatus tomorrow with the storms that we have at hand moving through. Kind of cleanses the atmosphere a little bit, washes it, so to speak. But it just looks hot. Right now, May is pacing as the hottest May on record in Corpus Christi. And given this forecast, probably going to be, it's a good bet right now that this May ends up being the hottest. It's also the most humid on record, and by a long shot. So that's going to continue into June. We all know it. It's a long, hot summer here. It's a long, brutal season for us. The payoff comes in October all the way through about, mid to early May. It's beautiful here, but the cost of that beauty is the relentless and brutal summer. So we're going to leave it there, and hopefully you found that informative. I'm going to go back over to the Weather Center, update some graphics for our 10 o'clock broadcast. We'll be live at 10, and then I'll be hanging out here at the studio, if need be, to update on how these storms are moving into the coastal bend. Looks like they're going to start moving in right around the time in Duval, Jim Hogg counties, right around the time our broadcast is finishing up. So we'll be able to pay very close attention to them. So we'll leave it there. Stay safe. Try to stay cool in the heat.